Bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum bum bum. Turn the music down slightly. All right, we should be live on YouTube now. Bum 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 bum. Wow wow. All right, let's get into it. Welcome, everybody, to my driver ratings for the 2026 Formula One Chinese Grand Prix. Now, it is a sprint weekend. I reckon this is going to be hard to do. Although, I said that in Australia, and it was actually a pretty easy week, other than maybe like 2 drivers who I got flamed for, which was basically just Lewis, because everyone's like, oh, you gave Lewis a 7 and not a 10. You're hating. So, let's see how we do this week. I think, again, it's going to be hard because it's a sprint weekend. It's early on in the year, so we're still kind of like, with the pecking order, but then we've also got the sprint. So, you know, if someone does well in the sprint, they're then bad in the race, it's really hard to rate. Anyways, we're going to go through them. All 22 drivers from last in the race to first in the race. Discuss how each of their race, or actually, sorry, how their weekends did. So sprint qualifying, and the race. And then we're going to rate them out of 10. There will be a poll up on the screen for you guys to be able to vote on so we can see where you guys rate them. And then I'll be doing my ratings as well. Now, we do this every single Monday after a Grand Prix weekend on the stream. We hop on, we do a review of the weekend, and then we end with driver ratings. So if you're watching right now on YouTube, come join us on Twitch. That is where you'll be able to vote on the poll. The poll only works on Twitch chat. What is that? Beverly, Tyrese, Arthur, one of the Twitch stream, sorry, the YouTube stream guys. Okay, let's get into it. I just spat everywhere, bruh. How does it happen? I might go get. I want spitting to stop. I dare you to give Lewis a 7 again. We'll see. We'll see what we rate him. I don't really think about ratings until I actually get to them. You know, that's the whole point of doing them on stream together. All right, so starting off, first driver is Alex Albon. Now, the poll is up in chat. This is how it's going to look for every single driver. Rate Alex Albon's Chinese Grand Prix. All you need to do is type the number into Twitch chat and it'll pop up on the poll. Someone do it, someone do it, someone do it. Guys, vote. Hello? There we go. So it pops up on the poll. After you guys vote, let me know in chat why you voted for that so we can discuss it. So we're starting off with Alex Albon. Now, Alex didn't start the race, but let's go back to sprint qualifying. So in sprint qualifying, he qualified P18. He got out-qualified by his teammate by 6/10, and he went out in Q1. Now, I do feel like the Williams was a team that was expected to go in Q1, SQ1, I should say. But to be 6/10 off your teammate is not great. So not great from Albon there. And then in the sprint, he managed to move his way up only a couple places. Carlos finishing in P12, Albon finishing 5 seconds behind. So honestly, pretty underwhelming sprint qualifying and sprint for Albon. Then in qualifying, he got out-qualified by his teammate again by 4/10. However, he did not start the race due to an issue out of his control. But we have to rate the rest of his weekend. There was enough sessions to rate him for. And yeah, underwhelming comparison to his teammate. Underwhelming in the sprint qualifying, underwhelming in sprint, underwhelming in qualifying. No, he didn't have a crash or anything like that as far as I'm aware. So usually what that means is a solid 3. 3 is like you had a bad weekend. You were worse than your teammate. You didn't maximize the car. But you didn't crash or anything like that. Now, obviously, his car is a bit limited. But still, slower weekend. Worse than his teammate. Could have done better. It is a 3 for Albon for me. But what are you guys saying? Majority of you guys saying a 3 as well. So I should have left that poll running for a little bit longer. What are you guys going to say about Albon? Carrie, what is up? Welcome to the stream. Because he was cheeks. Blau, welcome to the stream. Just B, welcome to the stream as well. That might be the best F1. And that might be the best reasoning for a driver in driver ratings ever. Because he was cheeks. All right, moving on from Albon pretty quickly. Just because obviously he didn't have the race. You know, obviously the race is usually where we take the main rating. But this weekend we take everyone. Next up, we've got Gabriel Bortoleto. What do you rate Bortoletto's weekend? Out of 10, get your votes in on the poll. Now, Bortoletto, another driver that didn't start the race. However, in sprint qualifying, he qualified P14. He got out-qualified by his teammate by 1/10. And was a few positions lower. Not a bad quality for Bortoletto, but again, would have liked to have seen him close to Hulkenberg and maybe through to SQ3, but not bad. Not bad by any means. Then, in the sprint, he finished in P13. Hulkenberg had an issue, so it's hard to compare Bortoletto to Hulkenberg there. But he finished behind Sainz, who started behind him. So again, kind of mediocre, kind of mid in the sprint race. And then in qualifying, went out in, no, sorry, did make it through to Q2, but was 6/10 off his teammate. So the worst of the drivers there. Oh, making a mistake in qualifying as well, ruining the qualifying session, and then in the race did not start. So I'm feeling a 3 for Bortoleto. I'm not gonna lie, I was initially going to do a 3.5 for Bortoleto because he at least wasn't like completely off Hulkenberg in the sprint qualifying and did okay in the sprint. But we're going to knock 0.5 off because he had that mistake in qualifying. So I think we're going to go 3 for Bortoleto there. Maybe there's an argument for it to be lower, but no, I think it's a solid 3 after his crash in quali. Cheek and a half. Pretty much the same as Albon in my opinion. His weekend was buns. He crashed. Yeah. He was less cheeks. He was less cheeks, but then he had a crash. So then he was more equally cheeks. So, yeah. All right. Majority of you saying 4 for Bortoleto. I think that's a bit too high for Bortoleto given his weekend, but I don't hate it. I don't hate it. All right. Moving on. We're moving through these guys pretty quickly. Next up, we have got Lando Norris. A lot of drivers here who didn't start the race. Poll is up for Lando. Get your votes in on the poll. Stream keeps crashing for you. That would be on your end because there's nothing on my end right now. Okay. Yeah, get your votes in on the poll. So, Lando Norris in sprint qualify. He qualified P3. He did a good job. He outqualified his teammate by 1/10. He outqualified Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, who he knew had a better car this weekend. So he actually did really good in sprint qualifying. However, in the sprint, he did manage to lose the 2 positions to the Ferraris, which I think was expected. But he did his job. You know, he qualified. He outqualified both McLaren, both Ferrari drivers. So good work there. And then in the sprint, you know, maybe you could argue he should have done a better job of battling the Ferraris, but I mean, the Ferraris, no, he didn't even need to battle the Ferraris. Ferraris just flew past. He finished in P4. He beat Kimi Antonelli. So he actually did a really good job on the sprint, securing 5 points for the team. I think he's actually done, yeah, I think he's done a really good job. Then in qualifying, however, he got outqualified by his teammate by 1/10, but still only 1/10 off. And behind the Ferrari boys, kind of putting the McLaren where it was expected to be, outqualifying Gasly and the rest of the midfield drivers. Again, they're like the Red Bulls didn't do that. So, yeah, I think Lando's done okay in that sense. And then in the race, however, he didn't start, which is not his fault. So we have to rate what we know. And sprint qualifying was really good. Sprint was good. And qualifying was decent. So I don't know. I'm feeling, is 7 too generous? No, I think 7's fine. Like he's done his job this weekend in the sessions that you could compete in. I think 7 is solid. Maybe an argument for a 7.5 because of the solid 5 points in the sprint and the sprint. Yeah, you know, I'm going to go 7.5. Solid in sprint qualifying. Got the points he needed in the sprint. Might have been better if it wasn't for the getting out qualified by Piastri. Yo, Fabio and Frantic, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome in, everyone from Fabio's stream. I hope you guys are doing well. Big shout out Fabio. If you're watching, if you haven't followed Fabio already, be sure to give him a follow. Did I just click raid? Okay, no, I clicked shout it out. Good. Be sure to follow Fabio a follow if you haven't already. But if you're tuning in from Fabio's stream, we're currently doing our driver ratings for the Chinese Grand Prix. So be sure to join us. All you have to do is type the number in chat that you want to rate the driver, and it pops up on the poll. And then I do my own ratings as well. So we're currently up to Lando. We're going in reverse finishing order. So we've only done 3 drivers so far. So stick around. But yeah, I'll be here patiently waiting for some ratings. Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, last week, it was very easy. The ratings were very easy, but Kimi and Lewis were the only 2 that people got heated about. And then in my YouTube comments, absolutely shat on me. There was actually one guy being like, how can you give Ollie Behrman a 9 when he finished behind the Ferraris? He got lapped and he gets a 9. How does a driver who gets lapped get a 9? That is the level of F1 fans who go out of their way to put a hate comment on stuff sometimes. And Frederick said you need to give Lewis higher than an 8.5. Oh, that's going to be tough. No, we'll see. Again, I don't think about ratings until I get to them, so we'll see. How's it going, though? Rafi, bomb the stream, dude. Who else we got? Abdo, Aiden, NCX. Roll, Amingo, T-Jap, Toy. You have to give Lewis a 10 now? Okay. Only wants to know Lewis. We'll get to Lewis. You gotta wait until the third to last driver, though. Is that Verksy? When CP? We'll get to CP soon. Lewis more than 8 or 9. Guys, you have to wait. Hanzo, Verksy, and Thobias. Thank you guys for the follows. Well on the stream. All right, anyways. Did we finish talking about Lando? Oh, I was deciding if Lando deserves a higher rating than this. Good rating. Good sprint qualifying. Very good sprint qualifying. Decent sprint given the Ferraris are fucking rocket ships. He finished ahead of Antonelli. Kind of let himself down in qualifying behind Oscar. I guess you could argue maybe it would have been better if he had done the good qualifying in qualifying, because that's the one that matters. But I think 7.5 is solid. How does Lando get 7.5 when he started? It's performance. We're rating their performances. We're not rating their results. Okay, yeah. For people just shooting it from Fabio's stream, just to give you guys a rundown, in case you're new here, the way I do ratings is I rate their performance. I don't rate their result. I don't rate. I try not to like take bias into it, like, oh, Arvid's a rookie, he's gonna get his rating inflated, or Alonso's a 2-time champ. Like no, we just rate solely their performance, and we rate the whole weekend. So obviously Lando didn't start, and it's no fault of his own, so we're just rating his performance. I think Lando did good. 7.5 too high for him. Lewis didn't even get that last week. Lewis didn't deserve it last week. It's different week though. How can Lando get I wouldn't go over 7 for DNS, just haven't seen enough. That's fair. I mean, you guys are right, to be fair. I can agree on the 7. Maybe I was getting too ahead of myself, but you know, at the end of the day, 5 points in the sprint. But I guess you could argue like the session that mattered, he did get out qualified by his teammates. So I'm happy with a 7. Okay. CP is the GOAT. Okay. All right. Anyways, let's do the poll there. Majority of you guys saying a 7 as well. All right, we move on to his teammate who had a very similar weekend. We got Oscar Piastri. What do you rate Oscar's weekend out of 10? Again, to vote on the poll, all you have to do is type the number in the Twitch chat and it'll pop up on the poll. Whoa, what is happening, bro? I can't even oh my God, I can't even time out. It's moving too quick. Okay. Oscar Piastri in sprint qualifying got out-qualified by his teammate by 1/10 and got out-qualified by Lewis. Again, I wouldn't expect the McLarens to out-qualify Ferrari, but Lando did, so Piastri could have. Piastri did, however, out-qualify Leclerc, so that was good. So yeah, I'd say like a decent... No, I'd say it was a good qualifying from a sprint qualifying from Piastri. But not as good as his teammate. And then in the sprint, he finished in P6. 2 positions lower than his teammate and behind Kimi, who obviously had the pens. So I think Oscar could have done better there. Then in qualifying, he did out-qualify his teammate by 1/10, but he did not start the race. So I think in comparison to Lando, even though he did out-qualify Oscar, even though he did out-qualify Lando in main qualifying, I think the sprint qualifying, the sprint was slightly underwhelming in comparison. So I'm feeling either 6 or 6.5. I think we'll knock 0.5 off because of the sprint qualifying. Well, let's say we knock 1 off, but then he gains 0.5 back for beating him in qualifying. The sprint, he was done dirty. Kimi almost went off. Oh, true. I forgot about that. Yeah, Piastri did get fucked in the sprint with that. I'm still on that middle ground of I really think McLaren could have argued with the stewards for that to get him out of that penalty, because Kimi slowed down so much, there would have been a massive field check. And if there wasn't, if he had stopped, which is what the FIA wanted him to do, yeah, the whole field would have got checked. So, I don't know. Typical McLaren, though, just never wanting to back their drivers and put in the work to try fight for them. Because you just know Christian and Jonathan Wheatley would go fight for their fucking drivers if they could in that situation. But, yeah, still. I think I'll go 6.5 for Piastri. Out-qualifying the Ferrari means nothing because on the start, they're just going to catch you. No, 100%. But in terms of performance, out-qualifying the Ferrari is really good. Lino, name of the bullet. All right, majority of you guys saying a 6 as well. Nice. Okay, another driver. the start of driver ratings this year. What the fuck? The start of driver ratings this year are going to be bad. Oh, wait, let me get the poll up for Stroll. Next up, we've got Lance Stroll. Get your votes in. What do you rate Stroll's weekend out of 10? So, Stroll in sprint qualifying got out-qualified by his teammate by 0.6, which is not great. At least he out-qualified the Cadillac guys, right? At least he out-qualified the Cadillac guys. But yeah, 0.6 behind his teammate. And then in the sprint, finished behind his teammate. But at least he beat Checo. But yeah, not really much to talk about. Hey, at least they finished the sprint. He powered through the vibrations. Then in qualifying, he got out-qualified by his teammate by 0.7, and got out-qualified by Valtteri Bottas, which I think we know by now. The Aston Martin is quicker. It just can't last the race. And then in the race, he lasted 9 laps before his engine called it quits. I think you guys are being very harsh on Stroll because he didn't do anything wrong. He's in a poo car, but he was, and it's hard to rate a driver who's in an absolutely shit car, but he didn't do anything wrong, but he was much slower than his teammate. So he's going to get a 3 like Albon and Bortoleto, who were also behind their teammate this weekend. But yeah, it does suck. I mean, he crashed. No, he didn't crash. His car lost all power. But yeah. Kind of tough for Stroll. I think, the backfield are going to have to just deal with lower ratings at the moment because their car sucks, which, ultimately makes them look worse as well. Yeah, y'all are harsh on fucking Stroll. He didn't crash, man. Anything below 3 is reserved for people who do that crash and absolutely suck. Dude, if he had a faster car, would have done Ocon for sure. I feel bad for Stroll and Alonso. Those vibrations sound torture. Yeah. Actually, yeah, maybe I'm falling into your guys' fucking hatred. Maybe it's not as bad as a 3. No, he's way slower than his teammate. Way slower than his teammate. I'm locking in 3. Then again, he can't really do much with the car. I'm going 3. All right, majority of you guys saying 2. That's harsh. That is harsh. You guys are crazy. Let me guess. You're going to give Alonso a 10 now? Next up, we have got Fernando Alonso. What do you rate Alonso out of 10? Get your votes in on the poll. Wow. So Alonso out-qualified his teammate by 0.6 in sprint qualifying. I mean, we just spoke about it, so it's the exact same, really. And then in the race, finished ahead of Stroll and Perez. In the sprint, finished ahead of Stroll and Perez. And then in qualifying, out-qualified Bottas and his teammate by 0.7. And then in the race, lasted 32 laps. My king, he soldiered on. Had an absolutely amazing start as well. Was racing the pack. He actually did really, really well. I am going to give, I think, at the end of the day, he's got a shit car. But I think for what he did this weekend, like, he obliterated his teammate. He finished ahead of Bottas in qualifying. Which, I mean, well, to be fair, that was obvious. But he really raced at the start really, really well. I don't know, I feel like you can't really, like, lower Alonso's ranking just because he's in a bad car, you know what I mean? OG Big Daddy, thank you for the follow. Yeah, once you guys vote, type in chat why. Alonso fan Twitter is the most wild thing ever. They're saying he's gonna die, and okay. 6 has good starts, but then goes backwards because the car sucks. Alonso smashed his teammate in qualifying, went up to P9. 9 for me. Damn. Good start, but engine is just damn ass. Anything below 4 is crazy. Well, I agree. He went up to P10. You know, I'm gonna give Alonso a 7. Like, at the end of the day, he obliterated his teammate. He did what he needed to do with the car. He got 32 laps in the race, which is insane. And he made up so many positions in the start. Like, again, I'm rating their performance, not their result. And, I mean, like, what more could have Alonso done with the car he's got? So, 7 for Alonso. Is it time for him to pack it up? The wave alone was worth a point. Aston's inconclusive, to be honest. Well, that's the thing. We could sit here and just go inconclusive on Aston until they have a good car. But I think we have to rate them based off the car. And at the end of the day, 7 is you did your job well. And he did his job well. He made up all those positions. He got some screen time for Aston, which is important. So yeah, going 7 for Alonso. Majority of you guys saying 4 and 5. You guys are crazy. You guys are so harsh. It's not Alonso's fault the car's bumhole. All right. This one's going to be hard to rank. This one is going to be hard to rank. Next up, we have got Max Verstappen. Yikes. Now, it's a hard one because you could look at, there's going to be people who look at Max and be like, oh, it's his fault, he sucks. And then there's people who are going to look and defend him and be like, it's the car, it's the car. You know, we had this discussion earlier on the stream. I'm kind of in the middle at the moment where I'm kind of like, look, that car is clearly booty hole. Hedges having some problems with it. The Ford's having some problems in general. Liam had problems in Australia. Arvid had problems in Australia and this weekend. So there's clearly problems with the car. However, Max is now having these issues in multiple sessions across multiple weekends. And, you know, he got stuck behind Gasly this week. He got stuck behind Lando this last week. I'm starting to think like, yes, there's definitely a problem with the car, but I'm also think maybe Max is maybe a little bit too stuck in his ways and is driving the car like Max Verstappen rather than driving the car the way it should be driven. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell at this point. If this continues for a few more races, I might sit here and be like, damn, Max, you need to like sort this out. But it could just be you got very unlucky for 2 weeks. It's very hard to tell. Anyways, let's talk about his weekend. In sprint qualifying, he qualified P8. He outqualified his teammate by 5/10. He did outqualify Ollie Behrman, but he did get outqualified by Pierre Gasly. Now, we know that car's a problem, but I do think he should be beating Pierre Gasly because I think that Alpine also isn't great right now, other than in a straight line. I guess you could argue maybe the way qualifying is at the moment, just fucking speed down the straights. In quali. But yeah, 4/10 behind Gasly in sprint qualifying. And then in the sprint, he managed to drop behind Behrman. Finished behind Behrman and Lawson because of his awful start in the sprint. I mean, look, at least he recovered to P9, but didn't finish in the points in the sprint. Yeah, which isn't great. I mean, obviously he didn't have enough time to probably recover, but still. Again, this is a hard one because it's like, do you look at that race start? And I don't know the answer to this. Neither do you guys, really. Do you look at that race start and go, that is Max's fault, he's bad at starting? Or do you look at that and go, he's got a problem with the car? Because in Australia, you guys were going, Liam's fault, Liam fucking sucks, Liam sucks. But then the same people are defending defending Max and being like, it's the car, it's the car. Same thing with Kimi. Oh, it's a car issue, it's a car issue. But then if it happens twice, it kind of becomes a skill issue. So my opinion now is it's happened twice. Some part of it has to do with Max a little bit, I think. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but I don't think anyone really knows the answer. Anyways, in qualifying, he outqualified his teammate again by 1/10, but got outqualified by Gasly by 2/10. So again, even though it's the car is poo, still getting outqualified by Gasly is not great, especially considering the Red Bull was up there with McLaren last week. Then, in the race, another poor start, dropped back, managed to recover up to a good result. He was sitting behind Gasly, running for P6? P5, P6? I can't remember. He was sitting behind Gasly. But he got stuck. He got stuck behind Gasly. And again, just like with Lando last week, like, just pace kind of drops off. And I'm like, damn, like, is this Max, like, struggling? Is this the car struggling? It's a bit surprising, to be honest. Anyways, with that said, I think Max has had a pretty poor weekend. Might even be one of the poorest weekends. Like, I'm trying to think when I've not given Max above like a 7 in the ratings. Like, Max is one of those drivers who always maximizes the car. Even in Spain, when he took out Russell, like, the only reason his rating was decreased was because he took out Russell. Like, this might be one of the lowest ratings Max has got. Because, again, I could be wrong, but my current opinion of Max is I think he's driving the car a bit. He's not adapting to what these cars are like. And I know how good Max is, and I know he can adapt well, but I think he's just not adapting to this kind of car great at the moment. So, with that said, I think Max had a pretty poor weekend. He still beat his teammate, though, in both sessions. And, well, yeah, in both. And where did oh, okay, yeah. He beat his teammate in all 3 sessions, so it wasn't absolutely terrible. And then he obviously broke down in the race. But yeah, it's just not great at the moment. It's not great at the moment. So I'm feeling I don't know, 4.5. I don't know. What do you guys have to say, though? Went through the pack twice. I mean, true, he did come through the pack twice. Rumors of Red Bull being 30 kgs overweight. Yes, we were talking about that before. Rocket ship merchant, fraud driver, he is washed. Okay, bro. Yeah, true. He also went off track multiple times. He was really struggling. He went off in the sprint. I think he went off in the sprint twice, right? Yeah, twice. Beverly, I can see your message. You don't need to spam chat, okay? Calm down. Calm down. I mean, the car is super overweight, and they put EcoBoost from a Ford Fiesta in the car. Give me freedom, give me fire, me car catered for me exact driving style, or I retire. Okay. Put it his way. Do you blame Kimmy for his bad start or not? There's your answer. Well, exactly. That's the thing. In Australia, Liam, Kimmy, I was like, look, it could be their problem, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that it was a car problem. And then it happened to Kimmy in the sprint, and I criticized Kimmy. Max in the sprint, I said, look, first time, we'll let you off. Second time, that's where I criticized him. And it's so funny to me because after I said that about Kimmy, everyone's like, why are you criticizing Kimmy and not Max? Because it was Max's first time. It's Kimmy's second time, bro. He also got very unlucky with the safety car timing, cost him places. True. His car is awful, to be fair, but I don't know. It's too soon to say, yeah. That's what I mean. It's hard to say, but we do have to do a rating at the end of the day. So you can't fence it with no ratings. I could sit here and be like, oh, it's a 6. No, you get a pick. And right now, I do think it's Max's problem, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's not long term. Got overtaken by Bam before pitting, by the way. How fun would it be if Horner was with Red Bull this year? Missed that guy. I mean, it was a great villain for the sport, wasn't it? Are we comparing him to others or himself? We're rating his performance over the course of the weekend. He's experiencing what Lewis did in 2022. Red Bull has yet to complete a GP with both of their cars without mechanical DNF. Yeah. Even... No, the V Cup had both drivers finish this weekend. Yeah, I mean, it's a new reg set and new engine manufacturer is not a huge surprise. I'm leaving all bad starts to the fault of the car until we know for sure that's not the car. I predict Red Bull Racing will fix their car. Max will have a generational comeback this season, starting from Silverstone. I hope, Lighty. I hope. Anyways, I am going to say it's a 4.5 for Max. I think, multiple mistakes in... Okay, Beverly, you're gone. Yeah, multiple mistakes across all the sessions. Then again, he did come through the field twice, and he would have actually recovered well if it wasn't for his car breaking down. I'm gonna go 5. I'm gonna go smack bang in the middle with 5. I still think it was an underwhelming weekend for Max. I still think he was underperforming. Which I honestly think this is the lowest rating I've ever given Max. Like, it's kind of scary to see. Not scary. It's kind of sad to see this from Max because, yeah. Like, I know how good he can drive a shitbox, and I just don't feel like he's driving the shitbox well, and that makes me think he's not understanding these cars as well. But anyways, we'll see if he's truly washed this weekend. Oh, that reminds me. You remember how before I was talking about that guy wrote like a whole paragraph in the comment section of the fan reaction video? I remember what it was now. I jokingly said, which to be fair, like when you take something out of context, not out of context, but like take a clip or something. I said, don't worry, Max, you'll be in a real car at a real track soon. And some dude wrote a whole fucking essay about how Shanghai is one of the best tracks on the calendar. How fucking dare you disrespect Shanghai? It's produced some of the best racing in Formula 1. It's such a good track. It's a driver's track. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, bro, I wasn't necessarily saying China is a bad track. I was just saying Nordschleife is a fucking goated track. And also, it was a fucking joke. It was a joke. Good news for Hadja is that him and Max were very similar. No, Hadja's been looking really, really good. Anyways, majority of you guys saying 4 for Max, so we agree on that. All right, next up, we have got Sergio Perez. What do you rate Perez this weekend out of 10? Get your votes in on the poll. 10. Okay, bro. Look at this. Like, can we time grid jokes out, guys? Can we time grid jokes out? Okay. Perez's weekend. So Perez in sprint qualifying didn't get out of the garage. So we have nothing to judge him for there. In the sprint, he out-qualified. In the sprint, he finished ahead of Bottas, but that was because Bottas broke down, right? I think. Yeah. But Perez finished last on the grid. Then in qualifying, he got out-qualified by Bottas by 1.5 seconds. Nice. And then in the race, he decided to send it up the inside of Valtteri, give himself damage. Very risky move. You know, I spoke about it already, but like doing a move like that when your goal isn't to be racing anyone, your goal is to be finishing the race, is super duper risky. And then doing it on your teammate is even worse. He then also finished behind Ocon and Bottas finished ahead of Ocon. So, yeah, honestly, it was a pretty poor weekend for Checo. Now, obviously, we didn't get to see how he would have done in sprint qualifying, but it looks like he was much slower than his teammate and took some risks there. I am going for a 2 for Checo. Knocking, 3, it would have already been a 3 rating because he was already slower than his teammate, but I'm knocking 0.5 off because of what he did in the race. Yeah. So knocking 1 off for what he did in the race, giving himself damage, and he was just much slower than his teammate. Adam, what was up on the stream? 2 sessions less track time, and it was close to Bottas. Was he close? He was 1.5 seconds off. Checo didn't crash. Your teammated. Wait, what? My hot take is Kalex's highest season finish has already happened. Somebody else said that in chat before. Someone said it's kind of funny how that might secure Bottas the higher result in the Drivers' Championship, that P13 in the race. I think we'll still have some more crazy races, and I think Cadillac will improve over the course of the season. Chechian, Mike, Hayden, Andre, thank you guys all for the follows. All right, majority of you guys saying 3 for Checo. I think it's maybe 1 too high for Checo this weekend, but anyways. All right, next up, we've got Esteban Ocon. Yikes. What do you rate Ocon's weekend out of 10? I'm going to get my chair so I can sit down. Oh, my back, bro. Get your votes in on the poll. Sup, Leaf? Again, guys, if you're watching on YouTube, come over to Twitch. That is where you can vote on the poll, so it pops up on the stream. Come get your votes in. Okay, Ocon, let's talk about it. So Ocon in sprint qualifying got out-qualified by his teammate by 1/10, but that correlated to him being 3 positions lower. He also got out-qualified by Hulkenberg in the Audi and Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. Now, he did out-qualify Bortoleto and the 2 V-Carb boys, but Bortoleto did crash and kind of ruin those final runs. I think, did Ocon get affected by those final runs in sprint qualifying as well, or no? Either way, his banker lap wasn't good enough to beat Behrman. Yeah, flags cost Ocon. Right, okay, so yeah, it's hard to tell if Liam and Bortoleto and Lindblad would have actually beat him or not, or Colapinto, but we don't know. But yeah, he was behind his teammate by 1/10. And then in the sprint, to be honest, he did well in the sprint. He managed to get past Hulk and get past Gasly. Finished 2 seconds behind Max and just behind his teammates, so not too bad. I'd say okay sprint qualifying, decent sprint. And then in qualifying, he got out-qualified by his teammate by 4/10 this time. Behrman made it through to Q3. Ocon was out in Q2 behind Franco and behind Hulkenberg again. But this time, he did actually do his laps. He did beat the V-Carb boys and Bortoleto, though. Oh, no, sorry, that was qualifying that happened. Sorry, sprint qualifying, he generally went out. Sorry, my bad. In sprint qualifying, he genuinely went out in SQ2. He did beat Liam Bortoleto and Arvid, but he was behind Hulkenberg and behind his teammate. It was qualifying where he kind of got fucked over. But again, we didn't get to see him against Liam and Arvid. But he did get beaten by Behrman, Franco, and Hulk. However, the race is one I need to talk about. Now, Ocon, I think he was doing a decent job in the race, right? Yeah, he was running in the points ahead of Behrman. Behrman got absolutely fucked over by the safety car. No, Behrman lost positions off the start. Oh, yeah, Behrman got stuck behind Hadja. Ocon was running in the points and then decided to throw it all away with his maneuver on Colapinto. And Behrman ended up finishing best the rest, which I think goes to show, one, how strong Behrman and the Haas pace was. Finished 20 seconds up the road as well. But two, I think how costly Ocon's mistake was. Rating's hard. What do I rate him? Sprint qualifying was mid, disappointing. Sprint was like, it was decent. Qualifying, hard to tell, but I'd say like And then race was underwhelming. I'm thinking maybe I don't know, 3 or 4. I mean, he was worse than his teammate every session, right? Handling the crash like a gentleman. Maybe I'll go 3.5. Because at least he was racing good prior to the crash. And but the crash threw him away points, man. Maybe, yeah, we got to be more harsh. Like, if you're going to throw away points with a silly mistake like that, we'll go 3. Benjamin Haas, would you replace Ocon with Doohan? I wouldn't replace Ocon with Doohan, but I'd replace Ocon with someone else. 10-second ability for Ocon due to Frederick's comments. Behrman owns him. Yuki getting his seat. Hashtag Ocon out. Yuki getting the seat. Started the Behrman and caused the crash with Colapinto. Was doing well before the incident. Mighty Emerald, one with the stream. Finished behind. And he finished behind Bottas. That's actually bad. It might have to be a 2.5 for that. It might have to be a 2.5. I forgot about that. Wait, I left my SSD in my fucking PC. There we go. Ugh. Chuck that on the bed. He finished behind a car 2 seconds a lap slower. Yeah. Yeah, it was bad. Maybe I'm taking sprint qualifying and sprint too much into it. But he didn't even get a point in the sprint, did he? We'll go 2.5. Alright, majority of you guys saying 2 for Ocon as well, so we agree on that. Alright, next up. Oh my god, we've still got so many people to go. Next up, we've got Valtteri Bottas. What do you rate Bottas this weekend? Out of 10. Get your votes in on the poll. So Bottas Bottas qualified dead last in sprint qualifying, but his teammate wasn't in the session to compare him to. And then in the sprint, his car broke down, so he was out. No fault of his own though. So kind of hard to judge him for sprint qualifying the sprint. However, in qualifying, he outqualified Perez by 1.5 seconds and outqualified Lance Stroll. So W. And then in the race, he managed to do well despite Perez driving to the side of him. He outraced his teammate and he finished ahead of Ocon. So honestly, Bottas has done a good job. I think very similar to Alonso, has beat his teammate this weekend in all 4 sessions. Again, Perez didn't get to... Well, to be fair, he didn't get to do sprint. He didn't get to do sprint qualifying. We didn't get to compare him. He didn't get to do the sprint, and Perez didn't do sprint qualifying, so it's hard to judge them there. But yeah, he drove a solid weekend for Cadillac, I'd say. I'm thinking a 7, but can't really rate him much higher than that because, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a Cadillac. So, yeah. Better than Alonso, you reckon? 13 might be Cadillac best result this year. Yeah, exactly. But we'll leave it a 7 because, I mean, yeah, it's one of those things. It's just hard to rate higher than that. All right, majority of you guys saying 7 as well. We agree. All right, next up is, I'm not gonna lie, someone who's kind of hard to rate this weekend, I feel, is Arvid Lindblad, because, you know, obviously I'm willing to give him a benefit of the doubt this weekend because he's a rookie at a track he's never been to in his career, and in practice 1, his car broke down, so he only had 7 laps under his belt before going into the competitive sessions. So, you know, from a personal standpoint, it's a benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to criticize him too hard. But, again, I like to keep my ratings consistent. There's no rookie bias or anything like that. we're rating solely his performance. So, looking at his performance this weekend, in sprint qualifying, he got out-qualified by his teammate by 3/10. Again, given he'd only done 7 laps, that's pretty good. But 3/10 off his teammate, and got beaten by Gabriel Bortoleto, and Hulkenberg, and the Haas boys. But it's kind of hard to tell where the V-Carb actually was this weekend. And then in the sprint, he DNF'd. He spun all on his own, and then had to retire, or ended up retiring from the sprint, which was pretty disappointing. Meanwhile, Liam finished in the points, getting 2 points, best the rest. So yeah, pretty poor mistakes from Arvid. Pretty poor mistake from Arvid, costing him potential maybe points. Probably not because of him being slower, but yeah, solid sprint qualifying and a mistake in the sprint. So pretty bad start. And then in qualifying, only got out-qualified by his teammate by 20 milliseconds. It was really, really close, but did get beaten by his teammate. Again, I'm not expecting Arvid to beat his teammate in the second race. He's done well to be matching Liam. But again, we're rating the weekend. He did get beaten by his teammate in quali. However, Bortoleto did fuck it off into the wall in quali, so we didn't get to see Liam and Arvid's final runs, so that could have changed. Maybe Liam would have dominated him. Maybe Arvid would have beaten Liam. We don't know. In the race, however, Liam managed to move his way up to P7, getting some very solid points. Meanwhile, Arvid got stuck in P12 behind Hulkenberg, behind Franco, who started behind him, behind Carlos Sainz in a fucking tractor, behind Liam, behind Gasly. So why did that happen? Why did Arvid finish so far down in the race? Specifically, Arvid's finished 10, 30... He's finished 37 seconds behind Liam. How's that happened? He spun in the race and finished 12th. Wait, did he spin in the race as well? Havoc, what does that do on the stream? They don't take rookie consideration. No, I don't. But I was just talking about his weekend, how it was decent. Like again, if I was looking at it from a rookie standpoint, he's done okay this weekend, given 3 laps. But yeah, qualified going to be an automatic 2. Finished behind a much slower Williams. Pace looks good, but rookie mistakes. Multiple spins in the sprint. Liam was ahead in the splits of the final laps of Q2 as well. Tire strategy. He spun in pit to gain the time back. I didn't even know so he spun in the sprint and he spun in the race. Damn. Okay. Yeah. Look, again. Benefit of the doubt. First weekend ever in China. Didn't get any practice runs in. Was matching Liam in qualifying at one point. It's not a bad weekend for a rookie, but we're rating the performances, and he got out-qualified by his teammate in sprint quali, spun and had to retire in the sprint, got out-qualified by his teammate in qualifying, and finished in 5 positions lower and 37 seconds behind his teammate in the race. I think it's going to be a 3. Maybe even lower. You know what? No, we'll give him a 3 because he was matching Liam in qualifying. But then he retired from... but he ruined both his races himself by spinning. And Liam got points in both. Again, I don't think it's this bad of a weekend for a rookie, but I rate solely off performance. I'm going to have to go 2.5 to keep my ratings consistent. But I wouldn't give rookie and Arvid with only a few laps under his belt this rating normally. But yeah, solely rating the performance, I think it's a 2.5. Like, his teammates finished in the points in both races, and he's spun out from both. Liam was ahead in... he spun and pit and couldn't gain the time back. He spun, I think, and race pace was bad, yeah. T. Griffin. Thank you for the follow. Bro, Beverly. Okay. Beverly, you're gone. All right, majority of you guys saying 5. Look, I guess if you're rating it from a rookie standpoint, he hasn't had a bad weekend for a rookie with 7 laps under his belt in practice. But I think 5 is way too high given where Liam was putting that V-carb. So, yeah, I got to disagree on the 5. Hard disagree. As much as I hate giving Arvid that, I got to hard disagree. All right, next up, we have got Nico Hulkenberg. What do you rate Nico's weekend out of 10? Get your votes in on the poll. In YouTube chat, someone named Beverly is just spamming the chat with their rating. All right, Nico in sprint qualifying, qualified P11. He outqualified his teammate by 1/10. He also outqualified Esteban Ocon in a Haas and Liam and Arvid in a VCARB. He just missed out on SQ3 by 15 milliseconds. Then in the sprint, he DNF'd. No fault of his own, right? Yeah, the car just broke down. Nice glass, thank you. Are you trolling? Anyways, no fault of his own, spun out. So yeah, honestly, sprint qualifying, he did a good job. He actually did a really good job, I'd say, in sprint qualifying. Sprint, no fault of his own. Then in qualifying, he out-qualified Bortoleto, who made a mistake. He out-qualified Bortoleto by 6/10. And then just missed out on qualifying by a 10th. Q3 by 10th. And again, out-qualifying Franco, out-qualifying Ocon, out-qualifying the VCARB boys. He's done a good job. Again, a lot of those guys didn't get to their final runs because of Bortoleto, but his bang collapse were better. And then in the race, he hung on to P11. Now Franco did get past. Sainz and the Williams did get past. Hadjus and Bamman spun and got back past. So you could argue maybe he should have got a better result, considering I don't think he had any problems in the race like these other guys, but still finished behind them. But still, we also don't have Bortoleto to compare him to in the race, but I actually think Hulkenberg's had a decent weekend, to be honest. Good sprint qualifying, very good sprint qualifying. Sprint, we didn't get to really see much from him. Good qualifying, but then again, you could say like arguable because of the Bortoleto spin. And then in the race, he finished P11, put himself in a nice position, but maybe should have done better. I'm thinking 6.5. I think it could have done better. It was better than his teammate. A little bit up in the air, but still a good weekend. Maybe there's an argument for a 7. I don't know. What do you guys think? Did a crazy P11 to P11. No, I'm not trolling. So Walid Ben Salah. I'm sure he did. True, his first race of the season. Add isn't that bad, so he could have scored points. Yeah. I think 6.5. I think there's potential there, but he did well, and it's a bit too much up in the air. So I'll take a 6.5. I think this was later on the season. This could be a lower rating or a higher rating. But right now, I think 6.5 makes sense. All right, majority of you guys saying a 6 as well, so we agree on that. All right, we move on to the points finishes now. We have got Franco Colapinto. What do you rate Franco's weekend out of 10? So, in sprint qualifying, Franco qualified P16. He got out-qualified by his teammate by 9/10. He got out-qualified by his teammate by 9/10. His teammate qualified P7. He qualified P16. So, 9 positions lower. He got out-qualified by both VCARBs, by both Audis, both Haases. Pretty disappointing sprint qualifying for Franco. And then in the sprint, he finished in P14. He finished again behind Bortoleto, behind Sainz, and behind his teammate. Only 2 seconds behind his teammate, though, you could argue, because of the safety cars and stuff like that. But yeah, I'd say bad sprint qualifying and average sprint. Then we move on to actual qualifying. He qualified in P12. Again, it was a bit affected by Bortoleto's crash, but still, he got out-qualified 3/10 by his teammate, 5 positions lower. He did, however, out-qualify Ocon, the VCARB boys, and Bortoleto, but was behind Nico. And then in the race, so okay, let's do his rating up until this point. Bad sprint, bad sprint qualifying, average sprint, average qualifying. I would probably give him like 5.55 at this point. However, in the race, bro flew through the field, avoided all the carnage, kept it clean exactly like he needs to do, was in the points at one point, was defending so fucking well on the hards. Exactly what I would expect Colapinto to be doing as a driver. Was defending the VCARBs, was defending the Haas, was really holding everyone up, giving himself the best opportunity to get points, and giving his teammate the best opportunity to get points, who ended up getting points. He did so amazing. And then Ocon decided to fuck it into the side of him and ruin his race. But he still managed to get into the points and get a point. Obviously, again, way down on his teammate. So yeah, I'm a bit torn. Obviously, the race is the main one. And at the end of the day, he got a point, and he would have gotten even more points if it wasn't for Ocon. So I would have probably given Colapinto a 8.5 for the race. But we have to kind of minus a little bit because of how disappointing he was in sprint quali, in the sprint, and in normal qualifying. So I don't know. I'm thinking maybe like, what does that round out to? Maybe like a 7? 7.5, something like that. What do you guys think? I might change my rating. But yeah, either way, Colapinto showed a lot of potential in that race. I was absolutely surprised. He was on for maybe even driver of the day at one point. But yeah, I mean, the other thing is because Ocon took him out at such an awkward point, maybe he would have never recovered that well anyway. But we won't know. His first race of the season too. Colapinto's? Oh no, you're talking about that was with Hulk. His race got destroyed by Ocon. Yeah, Colapinto first point since 2024. Wow, really? Oh wow, true. First time at China and not the same upgrades as Gasly. Gained 6 places with hard, so got screwed the safety car. He did amazing in the race. He fucking cooked, yeah. That's what I want to see from Colapinto, man. I feel like he's such an aggressive driver, and we really saw that. Slower than Gasly all sessions. Safety car killed his race. Sprint was poor. Then Gasly scored points, but race pace was good. Had decent points on before Ocon. Would give it a 6. His performance in the actual race is saving grace for his rating, to be honest. Yeah. He doesn't have the same upgrades as Gasly. 7.5 seems fair if Lando is that. True, true. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking, like, sprint qualifying was very disappointing. Sprint was underwhelming. Qualifying was underwhelming. But the race popped off. But then again, we didn't get to see full potential. I'm going to go 7. 1, we didn't get to see his full potential because he got taken out. And 2, at the end of the day, his teammate did do a lot better than him in all 4 sessions. Even though Colapinto got a really good result, Gasly still would have had a really good result. Gasly still did better. So I think, you know, like 3 bad sessions or 3 poor sessions plus worse than your teammate in all 4. I think I can't go higher than a 7, I think. So I'm going to keep it at a 7. Majority of you guys saying a 7 as well, though. I saw a lot of 8s there, though. Maybe if you're just looking at the race, but yeah. Anyways, next up, we have got, bro, Carlos Sainz. What do you rate Carlos Sainz's weekend out of 10? Vote on the poll. If you're just tuning on in, by the way, we are doing our driver ratings. We do this every single Monday after a Grand Prix weekend. So join us after the Japanese Grand Prix. We hop on the stream, we do our review, talk about everything, and then we rate the drivers. If you watch on YouTube right now, come join us on Twitch, twitch.tv/Ponden. That is where you can vote on the poll to rate the drivers. All right, Carlos, what do you rate Carlos out of 10? So Carlos in sprint qualifying qualified P17, absolutely obliterated his teammate by 6/10, and I think did the best he probably could have in that Williams, almost making SQ2, but I don't think that car was ever going to make that. And then in the sprint, he managed to move his way up to P12 from P17 to P12, finishing ahead of Bortoletto, ahead of Franco, ahead of Hedger, ahead of his teammate by 5 seconds. She is blasting music right now. Like, blasting music. She's 100% doing that on purpose because it's 10:20 p.m. That is funny. That is so funny. I mean, I don't care. I don't care, obviously. Like, I'm obviously talking in my room at, 10 p.m. at night, and I've been talking in my room for the last fucking 4 days, but that is just so funny to me. I've never, ever, ever heard her play music on a speaker before, but absolutely blasting it to where I can feel the bass through the fucking wall. That is so funny. You can't hear it? Wait. How do I turn my mic on so you can hear it? Wait. Sorry, I need to get Hannah just to show her this. One sec. bum, 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 bum. That is funny. That is funny, bro. Anyways, back to it. That was just, again, I don't care what fucking noise my neighbors make, but it's just funny. That's never happened before, so I just know she's doing that on purpose to like try piss me off. But like, it's more just funny to me than anything. All right, anyways, moving on. Wait, was my music on? Boom, 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 bro. That was so loud that like it was literally shaking the walls. All right, anyways, back to it. So who are we up to? I've kind of lost track. Signs. Okay. Reset. I can't remember what I was up to, so I'm just going to go back to start. Signs. In sprint qualifying, qualified 6/10 ahead of his teammate. And I think he did the best that he could have in that Williams. And then in the sprint, moved up 5 positions to finish in P12. 5 seconds ahead of his teammate, ahead of Hadja, ahead of Albon, ahead of Franco, ahead of Bordeaux. I think he's done good in the sprint qualifying, done really good at the sprint. And then in qualifying, again, out-qualified his teammate by 4/10, just missing out on, actually not just missing out, but missing out on doing the best he can, I think, with that Williams. However, in the race, absolutely cooked. Moved his way up through the field, keeping it clean, putting the Williams, which I did not expect to be getting points, in to P9. Not just 1 point, but 2 points. Now, obviously, there was a lot of carnage. Both McLarens out of the race, Max out of the race. But, like, ignoring all those guys, he still beat Ocon, who made that mistake himself. He still beat Arvid, who made his own mistake. He still beat Hulkenberg. He still beat Franco. Oh, I guess Franco got taken out. But still, like, he's still done a really good job. I think he's basically done the best he could in every single session this weekend. So with that said, I am going to give him a 9. I'm knocking 0.5 off because obviously Albon wasn't in the race, so we don't have anyone to compare him to there. And I guess just 0.5 off because, like, at the end of the day, is a backmarker team getting just slight points with so many people retired, but still, I think it's a very solid weekend for Sainz, so I'm going 9 for him. Valenmoor, Kian, did I thank them already? Thank you for the follows. Great start. Have you seen the launches off the line? You talk about Williams launches off the line? Defended well against Colo for the last couple of laps. Some Circle Junkies, good to see you, dude. The smooth operator deserves a good car. Maybe it's Beverly. I can hear slight vibrations. Yeah, well, I wish my mic didn't have like filters on it so you could hear it better. Anyways, majority of you guys saying a tied between 8 and 9. I definitely think it deserves higher than 8, at least at 8.5. But we mostly agree on that. All right, next up, we have got Isaac Hadjar. Now, another hard one to rate because a very mixed up weekend. What do you rate Hadjar out of 10? Get your votes in on the poll. Oh, you turned me. All right, so Hadjar in sprint qualifying got out qualified by Max by 5/10. He did make it through to SQ3 though. Which I think, again, for Red Bull, I'm going to say for second Red Bull seat standards, I think Hadjar's doing a really, really good job. But obviously we are rating their performances solely. So, again, I don't want people to ever look at me rating Hadjar or rating Arvid or rating... That's probably it, really. Like, and being like, oh, you're so harsh. But, like, I'm just rating the performance. If I was to rate them off of the context, which is a driver in a second Red Bull seat, I think Hadjar's doing a really, really good job. Anyways, 5/10 off his teammate. But he did make SQ3, though. Then, in the sprint... he made a mistake, right? How is he so far down in the sprint? What happened to him in the sprint? Oh, yeah. Okay, so in the sprint, he got basically killed by Kimi. No fault of his own. Would have liked to have seen what he could have done in the sprint, what his pace would have been like, but I guess we'll never know. To be fair, even after getting taken out, he still finished ahead of Albon. So, cool. Then, in qualifying, he was only 1/10 off Max. Again, for second Red Bull seat standards, very, very good, but still 1/10 behind his teammate. He did out-qualify Behrman as well. But I do think that Red Bull should have been beating Gasly. Maybe that's a hot take. I don't know, but I do think the Red Bull should have been beating Gasly. However, in the race, he dropped the car all on his own, went to the back of the grid. He did manage to recover to P8. However, he still finished behind Liam. He still finished behind Gasly and finished behind Behrman. I do think the Red Bull should be slotting ahead of those guys. So, look, in the end, he recovered well, but finishing in P8, only ahead of a Williams, and Franco got taken out. I feel like he kind of did the bare minimum in the race. Again, for second Red Bull seat standards, was good, but I do think he's kind of just done the bare minimum. So, it's a hard one to rate, really. Like, okay, sprint qualifying, sprint kind of inconclusive. Qualifying, okay, decent. And then race, made a mistake himself and then had to try to recover and only recovered to a P8. I'm thinking like a 6.5. Like Red Bull standard, it's probably like a 7, but I think I'm going to be like 6.5. Big mistake on that one cost him. In GP is what I mean. Maybe even 6.5 is too high. Like he finished P8 in a Red Bull behind these guys because of his own mistake that he made. Like he finished, he finished 30 seconds behind Behrman, who is tangled up in the same mess as him. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Ring my bell. I don't know, man. He got outpaced by Max in all 4 sessions. True. Okay, we're gonna go 6. But I think it would be higher if he was for Red Bull standards. A majority of you guys saying 6 as well. All right, we move on to my boy. You guys better give him a good rating, guys. You better give him a good rating this week. We move on to Liam Lawson. What do you rate Liam's weekend out of 10? Now, Liam, very good weekend, I felt, in terms of race results. Now, in sprint qualifying, he outqualified his teammate by 3/10, but he did qualify P13. Now, it was behind Hulkenberg. I would have liked to have seen him beat Hulkenberg. It was behind Ocon, but I think the Haas was quicker. And obviously Gasly was through to SQ3. I do think the V-Carb is capable of making SQ3, and he was only a 10th off of making SQ3, so I do think there was room for improvement there, but I don't think it's that bad for where the V-Carb is. I just would have liked to have seen him beating Hulkenberg at the very least, to be honest. But then in the sprint, he managed to move his way up, not only into the points, but getting 2 points in P7, finishing best of the rest ahead of Behrman, who started way up the road from him. How did Liam beat Behrman in the sprint? Behrman started 4 positions high and Liam finished ahead of him. How did that even happen? Anyways, Liam beat Behrman, beat Max, beat Ocon, and obviously beat his teammate who made the mistakes. So yeah, Liam's done an amazing job in the sprint. And then in qualifying, same as sprint qualifying, to be honest. Outqualified his teammate, but I would have liked to have seen him get closer to Q3 and out-qualify a few more people. However, Bortoleto did fuck it off into the wall and ruin the timing for Liam. So we didn't really get to see him compared to the other guys. So, I don't know, he's done okay in qualifying, I guess. Should have set a better banker lap. And then, in the race, was really, really good. Like, moved his way up through the field nicely. Arvid kind of went for that weird move on him, and then they had the weird strategy. He pit 1 lap before the safety car came out. He got absolutely fucked by the safety car and still finished in P7. If he didn't get fucked by the safety car, I generally think he would have been racing Gasly and Behrman for those points. I don't think he would have beaten Gasly and Behrman necessarily, but I do think he would have been in a better position. But yeah, he held off Hadjar, who was in a Red Bull, and again, was the highest finishing Red Bull driver in both the sprint and the race, getting very solid points for the team, and obviously outclassing his teammate. I think Liam's had a really, really good weekend. I am feeling like an 8.5. Obviously knocking off 0.5 for each qualifying performance, and then 0.5 as well maybe for the race, being able to do a little bit better. But yeah, I think a solid 8.5 for Liam. He smashed it. Jimala crashed in the race. Sprint qualifying was the only thing stopping him from giving him a 10. Normal qualifying, his lap was ruined by Gabby. Behrman, old meds, Lawson, new hards. Actually, am I being too careful with Liam because I don't want to glaze him? Part of me is like, maybe it is a 9. Maybe it's a 9. Ben was on old tires. Used tires in first lap, I think. Arvid new. B-Cub seems slow in quali, but good race pace. Part of me is like, maybe this is a 9. Like, highest finishing Red Bull driver. Finished, got fucked over by the safety car and still finished where he did. Guys, do I give him a 9 or am I being too generous? 9? Do I have permission to give him a 9, guys? Do I have permission to give him a 9? Or am I glazing? Okay. We got 2 confirmations for 9. Okay, good. Thank you, guys. Thank you. All right, majority of you guys sent 8. But we're locking in a 9. All right. Another beautiful drive. Oh, actually... The only thing you did bad was sprint qualifying was unknown. I'm going to go 8.5. I'm going to keep it at 8.5. Just because I want to leave room for these other drivers now. 8.5 for them. Okay, next up, we have got Pierre Gasly. What do you rate Pierre Gasly's weekend out of 10? Get your votes in on the poll. So, Gasly, in sprint qualifying, qualified P7. Best of the rest. He outqualified Max. He outqualified Behrman, Hadjar, the Audis, Liam, Arvid, Ocon. He did absolutely insane. He outqualified his teammate by 9/10. And yeah, it was best of the rest in sprint qualifying. Absolutely insane. And then in the sprint, however, was a little bit disappointing. He dropped outside the points. Finished behind Liam, behind Ollie, behind Ocon. So yeah, not a great sprint, but sprint qualifying was great. Disappointing sprint where the points mattered. Then in qualifying, he qualified again, best of the rest, outqualifying both Red Bulls, Behrman, V-Cubs, Haas, and outqualifying his teammate by 3/10. 5 position higher than Franco. Now, obviously, do keep in mind, Borderlady did crash, so it's kind of hard to tell who could have actually made it through to Q3 and battled Pierre. Maybe he wouldn't have even made Q3. But in the race, Pierre did absolutely amazing, finishing in P6, only 2 seconds behind Behrman. Wait, what? Oh, yes, this is me. He finished only 2 seconds behind Behrman. Now, I would have liked to have seen him beat Behrman, considering Behrman absolutely fucked up. It got fucked at the start and still finished ahead of him. But still, I really think like he outperformed that Alpine very, very well. So I am going to give Gasly I feel like it's a 9.5. Like, knocking off 0.5 for the sprint. But I feel like everything else was great. Like, sprint qualifying was perfect. Qualifying was perfect. Race was almost perfect. I don't know how he finished behind Behrman. Okay, maybe 0.5 off for sprint and 0.5 off for finishing behind Behrman. We'll go 9. But very, very solid weekend for Gasly. I think this might have been 9.5 if it wasn't a sprint weekend. And if you just looked at qualifying, it's like, holy shit, bro popped off. So yeah, 9 for Gasly. Let's hope he keeps this up because I think 2021 Pierre Gasly is back. I mean, actually, to be honest, 2021 Pierre Gasly never left. All right, majority of you guys saying 9 as well. All right, next up, before we get to the big boys, we have got Ollie Behrman. What do you rate Ollie Behrman's weekend out of 10? Get your votes in on the poll. Now, Ollie, in sprint quali, Ollie in sprint quali, he outqualified Ocon by a 10th, made it through to SQ3. He also outqualified Isaac Hadjar. However, he did get outqualified by Max and Gasly by a good amount. But to be honest, I am not too fussed about that. I think he put the Haas exactly where it should be and did his job in sprint qualifying. And then in the sprint, managed to move up a position to P8 to get a point. He did finish behind Liam, though. So again, I think there was a little bit of room for improvement in the sprint quali and a little bit of room for improvement in the sprint. However, great results in both. I'd say a 9 for both sessions. And then in qualifying, he made it through to Q3, but again, got out-qualified by Hadja, Max, and Gasly. So again, room for improvement, but still made it through to Q3. And did his job as the Haas driver. However, the race, absolutely insane pace. Got taken out or got tangled up with Hadja, but still managed to move through the field so well and finish in P5, 23 seconds ahead of Liam, just ahead of Gasly. And only 30 seconds off of the Ferrari boys. Honestly, absolutely insane weekend for Behrman. I think if this was a normal weekend, I think it would be maybe a 10, but you know, given the finishing behind Liam in the sprint and the room for improvement in both qualifyings, I'm going to knock 0.5 off. You know, maybe there's an argument it should be 0.5 off for sprint quali, 0.5 off for the sprint, 0.5 off for quali, but I think he makes up for that entirely in the race by finishing in P5 within the same drive. So yeah, 9.5, not perfect weekend. But yeah, you know me, I'm very harsh. You need to have a perfect weekend to get a 10. So 9.5 is very solid for Behrman. Well done. Well done. What are you guys saying about Behrman? Love this joke every Monday after quality GP. Dude, honestly, it happens naturally, and then I remember. It just rolls off the tongue. Did he do any Chow messages yet? I don't think he did. Not a single position outside the top 10. Just saying. He deserves it. Better than his teammate. Oh, for sure. For sure. What did we give Ocon again? I can't remember what to give Ocon now. All right, majority of you guys saying a 10 for Ollie. I mean, I disagree. It wasn't a perfect weekend. I reserved 10s, but you could argue it is very much a 10, depending on how you do your ratings. All right. It is time for the big boys. We're going to have some heated discussions now, I can just tell. We have got, first up, Charles Leclerc. What do you rate Charles' weekend out of 10 performance-wise? Get your votes in. So, in sprint qualifying, Charles qualified P6. Now, I'm going to be harsh, right? These guys are the second best team. They are fighting for a potential constructors. Again, we're thinking long-term over the course of the season here. So, Charles, in sprint qualifying, got out-qualified by his teammate by 4 tenths. He said himself he's just not comfortable with this track, and he got out-qualified by both McLarens. So, again, at least he didn't get out-qualified by Gasly or the Red Bulls, but in comparison to McLaren, he should have been beating them, and he should have been beating Lewis. You know, what should have been closer to Lewis, 4 tenths off. However, in the sprint, he did finish in P2. He managed to move his way up. What was that? 4 positions to finish in P2. He beat his teammate, outraced his teammate. Obviously, the starts helped him get past the McLarens, and he kept it clean, unlike Kimi, who threw it away. So, honestly, great, amazing result. Perfect result, I'd say, for Charles in the sprint. I don't think he could have done much more than that. But yeah, obviously, sprint qualifying was a bit weak performance-wise for him. Yeah. The only thing I'll say about the sprint, and I don't know if this affects his performance so much, but you know, I do think that him going for that move on Lewis the way he did was very risky with Antonelli closing him behind. I think if Antonelli had have ended up beating them, I would have probably knocked points off Charles for that, because like battling your teammate instead of securing a 2-3 is very risky. In the end, Kimi had the pen and it didn't affect anything, but it's just something of note. Like, he needs to be careful throwing away potential points with his team by battling his teammate like that. But then again, he got past, he got the points he wanted. So yeah. Then in the normal qualifying, again, he got out-qualified by his teammate. Very, very small margins, but still did get out-qualified by his teammate. But this time, out-qualifying the McLarens, which he needed to do. So he's done his job, just not as good as his teammate. Then, in the race, he's had an amazing start. Had an amazing battle with Lewis. Put on an absolute show. 10 out of 10 for the show he put on. But again, finished behind his teammate. So that's 3 out of 4 sessions he was slower than his teammate. At the end of the day, good result. Good result for Leclerc. But, you know, he would admit it himself. He doesn't like this track. He wasn't comfortable this weekend. He could have done a lot better. Sprint qualifying, should have out-qualified McLaren's. Should have been way closer to his teammate. Sprint, amazing work. Qualifying, did his job, but could have been better than Lewis. And then in the race, could have been better than Lewis. So I think there's a lot of room for potential, but it was still a great weekend. So I'm feeling, I think I'm thinking of an 8 or 7.5. I don't know. I feel like, you know, like he got beaten by his teammate, but he still did his job in the race. He got beaten by his teammate qualifying, but he still did his job. Sprint, he finished ahead of Lewis. It's only really sprint qualifying that lets him down this weekend by getting out qualified by the McLarens and 4/10 by Lewis. Other than that, it's a solid weekend. Part of me is like, maybe it is an 8.5, but I don't know. Maybe you could argue there's a more range, and he was slower than his teammate. And yeah, like, again, yeah. He doesn't like this track is not excused. I think we have to remember it will always be Merc 1-2, Ferrari 3-4. I bet that's the thing. Like, it's pretty easy for the, it's, you know, I think Ferrari and Mercedes fall into the McLaren category this year, where it's like, you got to remember, like, they don't really have much competition. So it's like, they are going to be heavy. Yeah, okay. You know what? I'm going to keep it at 8 because I have to treat them like the McLaren boys last year, which is we only have them against their teammate and one other driver, or in this case, it was Russell and Antonelli. Maybe it is an 8.5 for the sprint. What do you guys think? 8 or 8.5? Leclerc deserves a 9 just for the battle against Lewis. Hampered Hadja, helped by a safety car. Actually 9 because he was with Lewis, the greatest driver so far. Just facts, they can race wheel to wheel the entire race without crashing. They can't get P2 or P1, so P4, P2 whilst fighting Lewis on Sunday for most races. Amazing for races. That's a blicky. As much as I love watching Charles and Lewis race, they're costing themselves chance to perhaps get a P2, P3. Yeah, I mean, we spoke about that earlier today during the review. Is this him in an uncomfy track? I'm set for his performance come Silverstone. 8.5, 7, 7.5, 8, 8, 8. Well, it's very torn. It's very torn. I'm torn because I'm like, it was a good weekend. Nah, okay. I'm gonna stick to what I said before. We've got to compare him to his teammate. He was slower in 3 out of 4 sessions, and like, it was a solid weekend, but I think it could have been better individually. And yeah, like I say, I think if it was not a sprint weekend, it would probably be an 8.5. But 3 out of 4 sessions, like, yeah, you got to do better than your teammate, especially that far off in sprint quality. All right. Anyways, majority of you guys saying 8 as well. All right. Next up, we move on to the top 3. I feel like I'm being a little bit quieter. I gotta remember next week to do Grand Prix review earlier so it doesn't tick over 8 p.m. Whoops. All right. Next up, we have got the man, Lewis Hamilton. This might be his highest rating in a very long time. Actually, I don't know. I can't remember what ratings Lewis was getting last year. I don't think they were great. What did Lewis get in Australia? I think I gave him a 7 Australia, right? See, come on, guys. I gave him a 7 Australia. I knew he could have done better. And look what he did. Look what he did. Anyways, Lewis, in sprint qualifying, he qualified in P4. He outqualified his teammate by 4/10. However, he did get outqualified by Lando. I would have liked to have seen him do better than Lando, but not a big deal. Not a big deal. 4/10 ahead of his teammate. In the race, in the sprint, however, he did lose the position to Leclerc by the end of it. But again, did his job, finishing in P3. Finished ahead of Kimi, which, while Kimi was dicking around, the Fry boys did their job and finished, capitalized on it. He finished P3, but again, behind his teammate. Qualifying, however, edged Leclerc in P3 and only 2/10 down on Russell. Obviously, Russell was dealing with issues, but still. P3 for Lewis. And then in the race, outpaced his teammate and finished ahead. I think Lewis had a great weekend. I would say probably the best Lewis I've seen since Silverstone 24. Is it safe to say best Silverstone since best weekend for Lewis since Silverstone 24? But yeah, good sprint qualifying, could have done better in beating Lando. Good sprint, could have done better in beating Charles. Qualifying, amazing, beat his teammate. Race, amazing, beat his teammate. I'm feeling a 9 or an 8. I was going to say an 8.5, but I feel I must be wrong. No. No, he finished on the podium and outraced his teammate. Yeah, obviously going to knock off 0.5 for sprint quali, not beating Lando, and 0.5 for not beating Charles in the sprint. However, qualifying, perfect, and race, perfect. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, well, he didn't outclass his teammate. Like, we know how good Charles is. And, you know, Lewis did an amazing job of holding off Charles, because I think after the sprint, I was a bit worried that Charles was just going to blitz past, but Lewis held his own. Anyways, what do you guys say? Why does this picture look so awful, man? Third is the new first at the moment. Fabio waiting for his moment. I'd give him 9.5 if I could, to be honest. Can we just get over that Ferrari isn't concerned about qualifying as long as they make second or third? I mean, at least at the moment, but, you know, the other teams, specifically the Mercedes, are going to improve on that soon. He's close to a 10, then an 8.5. No, I was tripping. Ignore me. Speaking out loud, I think our ratings are suffering from finishing position. Wait, so you're saying he should be higher or lower? If he didn't wash his tires in sprint, he would have been P2. Look, no, put it this way. If it was a lower, okay, I was going to say, if it was a normal race weekend, he probably would have got a 9.5 because qualifying was great and race was great. I'd probably just knock 0.5 off because it wasn't like a dominant weekend. But yeah, the main reason it's a 9 and not a 9.5 is because of sprint qualifying and the sprint. I was seeing a lot of you guys give it 10. I mean, it wasn't a perfect weekend. Like, even ignoring sprint qualifying and sprint, it wasn't perfect. Just having to, like, battle Leclerc, obviously. But yeah, finishing behind Lando in sprint qualifying and finishing behind his teammate in the sprint. It's a 9 for me. It's a 9. All right, majority of you guys saying 9 as well. All right, that just leaves the Mercedes boys. What do you rate Russell out of 10? Get your votes in. Okay, so Russell in sprint qualifying. Well, my chair's rotating. Fuck. Russell in sprint qualifying qualified P1, 3 tenths ahead of Antonelli, which was very, very good. And then in the sprint, finished in P1 despite having to race the guys around them. Yeah, obviously, perfect sprint qualifying, perfect sprint. Then in qualifying, he had an issue that was not his fault. You know, issue with the power unit. However, as far as I'm aware, he got out with a normal car. Obviously, he lacked a banker lap. The pressure was on. He had to kind of rush through his warm-up lap. And he finished 2 tenths behind Antonelli. Again, it's understandable why he qualified P2, but he still had the opportunity to get P1 and he didn't. And then in the race, he finished in P2. Again, got swallowed by the Ferraris off the start. And I'm not going to lie, I was very disappointed with how long it took him to get through the Ferraris. I mean, he got past the Ferraris very quick by lap 4, made a mistake, lost both Ferraris, got stuck behind them for 10 laps, and then they battled for however many laps, and he still couldn't get past. I don't know if he was chilling, going, look, Antonelli's going to win this race. I'm just going to manage my tires, manage my battery. I'll get past them eventually. Or if he just genuinely struggled to get past. And then once he got past, he wasn't able to catch Kimi. Kimi outpaced him this weekend, I feel. So, yeah, I feel like, again, we have to hold Russell to a high standard. He's in the best car. And I think, you know, sprint qualifying and sprint was perfect. But I think qualifying, he could have done better. Despite having that problem, he could have done better. But for me, it's the race. You know, making that mistake and losing those 2 positions to the Ferrari boys is not great. Getting stuck behind the Ferrari boys for as long as he did, and then not being able to catch Kimi, which, like, again, more props to Kimi than diss to Russell, but I think he could have done better this weekend. So with that said, I am feeling 8 or 8.5, but I don't know. Like, sprint qualifying is perfect. We're not knocking any points off for that, but qualifying, I would probably knock 0.5 off. And then race, I'm probably going to knock 1 off. I probably wouldn't knock higher than 1 off. Let's go 8.5 for Russell in sprint qualifying. Sorry, in the sprint. Then again, what did I give Leclerc? What did I give Leclerc? Because okay, this is the question. Russell versus Leclerc. Who had a better weekend? Because Leclerc had a bad sprint qualifying, but then a really good sprint, but then worse than Lewis in qualifying and worse than Lewis in the race. Russell had a very good sprint qualifying, very good sprint, but then a weaker qualifying and a weaker race. I'd probably say they're pretty similar. Maybe Russell was a little bit better. I think the sprint qualifying lets Leclerc down. I don't know. He got outraced and outsmarted again in the sprint. You talking about Leclerc? Eli, what is up on the stream? I think 8.5 is ideal. Yeah. I don't know. Part of me is like, should Russell be punished a little bit more in his rating for the mistake he made that cost him a race win? Because like we can sit here and be like, oh my god, Kimi had such a good race, but like Russell also punished himself by making the mistake and getting stuck behind the Ferrari boys. Russell was better results wise. The Leclerc mistake cost him P3 for Lewis. What do you guys think? Maybe I'll leave it at 8.5. I feel like if Leclerc had a finish where he did, I'd be okay. But I still, you know. I don't know. Like, he did get stuck behind the Ferraris for so long. Leclerc cost him 3 points. Russell costed him 7. I mean, that's the difference between first and second, though. Powerlifter. Yeah, hit me with it, bro. I'm going to go 8. I think I'm going to go 8. I think I'm going to go 8 also because Kimi didn't have a perfect weekend. I think he was beatable, potentially. So let's go 8, because I think he could have won the race if he didn't get stuck behind the Ferraris and if he didn't qualify. Yeah, no. I think if this was Lando, he would be getting an 8. He could have been. Yes, he had the problem with qualifying, but he could have out qualified. He had the opportunity to out qualify Anthony, even though I didn't expect him to. He could have. In the race, he got stuck behind the Ferraris for too long, and like if he had actually cleared them, he could have beaten. He could have won the race. And like if I was criticizing Lando right now, I'd be saying he could have beat him. Russell barely even. Okay. All right. Majority of you guys, and maybe I'm giving too much weight to the sprint. Majority of you guys saying 8 as well. So we agree on that one. In sprint, people are thinking playing safe is getting outsmarted by Ferrari. He didn't have to be aggressive. He's playing it safe. Yeah, true. I was going to Vital. All right. That leaves the main man, Kimi Antonelli. What do you rate Kimi Antonelli's weekend out of 10? Now, I think this is going to be the one which we disagree with on the most. So, Kimi, in sprint qualifying, got out-qualified by his teammate by 0.3. You know, you're in the fastest car. Again, I just said it. The Ferrari boys, the Mercedes boys are kind of clear of the other cars right now. We need to compare them to each other, to their teammates, and to each other. Kimi was 0.3 off of Russell. Now, obviously, he did his job. He qualified P2. He was ahead of McLaren, ahead of the Ferraris. But 0.3 off your teammate isn't great. And then in the sprint, even worse. He had a bad start, dropped back, absolutely clarted Hadja in the side, gave himself a 10-second penalty, finished behind not only Lando, but both Ferraris. Sorry, not only both Ferraris, but Lando as well. Finishing 5 seconds behind his teammate. You know, that's 4 points less than his teammate in a championship fight. And, you know, extra points to Ferrari. So, honestly, sprint qualifying, I'd give him a 7. And the sprint, I'd probably give him a 5. Quite underwhelming sprint qualifying and sprint. However, he made it up in qualifying. He qualified on pole. He beat Russell by 2 tenths. But again, Russell did have an issue. So it wasn't like an insane, oh, I've 100% outpaced Russell here. Russell was on the back foot and no fault of his own. But still, Antonelli did his job. He did a pole. He got pole. Then, in the race, Kimi was basically flawless in the race, bar the one mistake he made right towards the end of the race. You know, the Ferraris were always going to get past, but he got past straight away. Second lap, straight back past, boom, cruised off into the distance. He did amazing. I have nothing bad to say about his race. His race pace was amazing. I think he was actually quicker than Russell in terms of race pace, to be honest. I mean, obviously, if they battled, it would have been a different story. But I think, obviously, Russell is a more mature, experienced driver. So I think Russell would come out on top. But he didn't really have to fight for it. But he did such a good job of getting back past Lewis and just cruised off to the distance. Little mistake at the end of the race. Again, it wasn't perfect. Like at the end of the day, that mistake is not great, but it didn't really affect him at the end of the day. But yeah, I do think at the end of the day, like, we can sit here and be like, oh, the sprint isn't that important, but that's 4 points he lost on his teammate in the sprint, and you know that's the equivalent of, that's more from second or third in points in terms of the championship points. So yeah, I think we have to demote points off of Kimi here. Again, if we were just rating qualifying in the race, it would be a 9.5. You know, I'd probably knock 0.5 off just because he didn't have to really he had the advantage in qualifying. And then he made that little mistake in the race. So it'd be a 9.5 if it was just qualifying and the race. But it was a sprint weekend, and it was a disappointing sprint qualifying. 3 tenths off his teammate, and the sprint was bad. The mistake on Hadja, taking him out, 10-second penalty, finishing behind Lando, finishing behind the Ferraris. I think it has to be an 8 for that. At the end of the day, 4 points lost in the championship. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks that the winner's getting an 8, but it's a sprint weekend. It is a sprint weekend. You're forgetting the first win plus youngest pole sitter ever tax, so you're going to give it a +1. No. Again, I would have given probably a 9. Like if I was doing a normal ratings system, but based on performance, I'm going 8. Yeah. You know, at the end of the day, Leclerc got an 8, and Leclerc didn't make any mistakes this weekend. He did better in the sprint. He just slightly was worse than Lewis. So I feel like Antonelli, he made a mistake in the sprint, was much worse than his teammate, but then better in the race. So yeah. Sloppy sprint, but near grand slam in the race. 8.5. My son fluke at sprint. 8 is what I said. If there was no sprint, this weekend is a 10 out of 10. I'd still give him a 9.5 if there was no sprint this weekend, because again, he didn't actually really have to fight Russell because Russell was on the back foot, and then he also made that little mistake in the race. But I don't know. That's just me being harsh, like I normally am with the perfect 10. You gotta be perfect for a 10. Like you're in a rocket ship. Because put it this way, if Russell was on his ass and he made that mistake in the race, boom, Russell wins. Charles did make a mistake that cost him a position. What mistake was that? Invictus? Not his fault. George wasn't there to fight. He nearly grand slammed. It would have been a 10. I mean, it depends how you look at it. Some people will look at Antonelli's mistake in that race and be like, oh, well, no one was near him, so that mistake didn't matter. But I look at it as like, if someone was near you, that mistake would have fucking cost them the win. Charles lock up and lost P3. When was Charles lock up? Oh, true. 8 or 8.5, guys. What do you think? 8 or 8.5? I do think Lewis and Russell were better drivers this weekend than Antonelli. I think Lewis was consistent across all 4 sessions. I think Russell was on the back foot because of the car issue he had. Again, I do think Russell could have done better in the race by getting through the Ferraris, but I still think he was the faster driver than Antonelli this weekend overall. And then in terms of Leclerc, I think he was pretty on par with Leclerc. So I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to stick with an 8. I'm going to stick with an 8. It sucks giving someone an 8, even though they had a great race. But you just have to remember he was given the advantage because of a mechanical issue to George. George wasn't actually there to fight in quali. And then in the race, he was flawless, but he did lose 4 points in the sprint. He drove pretty poorly in the sprint. And sprint qualifying 3/10 off your teammate, which I think showed if Russell didn't have that issue, he probably would have lost in the race as well. But again, that's performance-wise. He cried it up, so he cried, so up it by 1 point. Charles also lost a chance for P1 in the sprint after safety cars. He made a mistake. He's Kimi Räikkönen. True. If George didn't have a quality issue, he would have gotten pole. Yeah, that's the other thing. Honestly, all these mistakes this week shows me he won't win the championship. I mean, yeah, that's, you know, we spoke about this earlier, but with Kimi, like, I think he had a good weekend and he showed what he's capable of. But like at the end of the day, like, just because you won one Grand Prix and he'll win more this year doesn't mean he's a better driver than Russell and going to be able to fight for the championship. I hope I'm wrong, bro. I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't see him fighting Russell for the championship. You know, he made a mistake. He made a mistake in practice in Australia. He made a mistake in qualifying. He made a mistake in the race. He made a mistake in sprint qualifying. In China, he made a big mistake in the sprint. He's got a lot. He's got a lot of tidying up to do. But still, it was a good weekend, or good race weekend overall. Anyways, we'll leave it there. Majority of you guys saying 8 as well, so we agree on that. Can't wait for YouTube comments to flame me, even though majority agreed on an 8. Anyways, guys, that is it for the driver ratings for the Chinese Grand Prix. What do we think? Who was the highest? Who was highest this weekend? Was it Bamman again? Is that Bamman highest rated 2 weeks in a row? Damn. Who else was highest rated? Who else did we get? High rating for Ollie. I think Hamilton high rating. Russell high. Gasly high. Liam high. Wait, so what was top 3 ratings? Ollie, Liam, Gasly, and Lewis tied on a 9? Carl's got high as well. I've already forgot what fucking ratings I did now. Yeah, a lot of 9s. A lot of 9s. Good work, guys. Good work. Anyways, guys, that's gonna wrap up the driver ratings. If you're watching on YouTube and you enjoyed, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like down below. Come join us on Twitch. That is the place where you can vote on the polls for future Grand Prix reviews. For future driver ratings. We'll be doing our driver ratings after Japan, so be sure to tune on in there for that. Anyways, YouTube, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.